A study of Stewart's Creek is set to begin. The Sandy Neck Board grapples with erosion, and a state commission on erosion will travel to Barnstable to hear what residents have to say. These stories and more on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Tuesday, March 10th, 2015. I'm Sarah Mantle. A study of the effectiveness of the Stewart's Creek Culvert project will begin soon. Town manager Tom Lynch says last week he signed a contract with the Woods Hole Group to complete the study. The culvert project was completed more than a year ago, but the dredging of the creek was never done. Residents have complained about changes to the landscape and a very strong tidal odor. The Sandy Neck Board is searching for a long-term solution to erosion that could jeopardize the beach's parking lot. Beach Park manager Nina Coleman says storm damage over the last 2 winters has been devastating.
I thought it'd be kind of fun to put the different storms down there so we all remember them. Juno, Linus, Marcus, and Neptune were the ones that came out of the north and caused significant erosion on Sandy Neck. Hardest hit this particular storm event, cluster of storm events, I should say, was the lower lot. I'm going to show you an aerial of why that was more affected this year than last year. If you remember last year, I kept talking upper lot, upper lot. That was my main concern because there was a heavy erosion in that location and because of the septic system. So this time we got hammered in the lower lot. You can see we have about 6 inches, or had about 6 inches of sand from the edge of the parking lot to where it dropped off. That bit of pavement that you see, if you remember, we discussed this before, that's actually from the blizzard of '78 when we lost parking. And so when we have these big storms and the dune retreats that far, we can actually see remnants of that. Okay, so we actually did sand loss analysis, and this was from our just the sacrificial sand. So the yellow line is right after they bunkered it in late 2014. Juno came in and took, I think what you averaged was about 86% of that sand. So you can see we had 100% loss on the western corner of the lower lot and 75% loss in front of the upper lot. So I just wanted to, it seems like we just keep spending money. I want to make sure it's all on one slide for everybody. December 2013, we did about 120,000. And then the following December, we did 90,000. That was the 90,000 that Juno took most of. And then, as you know, we had to get an emergency appropriation through the town council and expedite everything to get another $50,000 worth of sand on our beach, and that just occurred the end of February. The whole town rallied. I cannot tell you, every department had to be involved with this. It is not easy to expedite something like this. There's so many things involved, and just for an example, we had to get an exemption from the state for the RFP process, because everybody knows an RFP process goes on forever. So we were able to do it through a quote. And just that whole process took a lot of people and the town staff, and I was really grateful that everybody could see where we were at, which was that we were just about to lose our lower lot.
Christine Player with CLE Engineering says because of tough regulations, the board should start planning now for longer-term solutions.
What we're dealing with is a very, very sensitive environmental resource area that's highly protected by state regulations, federal regulations, in particular the Wetland Protection Act, and basically the act itself, a coastal dune is a protected resource, and any activity within a coastal dune has to meet the certain performance standards that you see there. And what I've highlighted in blue are really the reasons why we're so challenged with trying to stabilize this dune, because it essentially says we can't do anything to the dune that would stop it from allowing it to move landward, because that's its natural ability to migrate landward. A berry beach does that, or the lateral movement of the dune itself, so the sediment just blowing and moving down the beach. So if we propose any type of action, such as hardscape, meaning stone or concrete or anything like that. Basically what we're doing is suffocating the dune's ability to move freely, and that's what the resource is intended to do. And by stabilizing one area of a dune by such a process as that, there's a cause and effect. So what you're robbing Peter, you're paying Paul, or paying Paul to rob Peter, what have you. So it really becomes a challenge within the Wetland Protection Act to do a lot of things with dunes outside of something that is on the idea of soft solutions, such as placement of sand. We'll talk a little bit about these sandbags, but you really are restricted in terms of the type of things that you can do within these types of systems. The other issue we have out here is habitat. Nina had shown that slide a little bit earlier where it showed all our friends, the birds, the toads, where they're all located. So we also have to contend with not impacting the habitat as well, which is protected and endangered.
Claire says she is looking at options that are already allowable under federal, state, and local regulations.
So the two ideas are the options that really we had at our fingertips, one of which obviously has been done 3 times, and that is the sacrificial sand nourishment. Again, it's immediate, it's temporary, and it really was going to buy some time to look into the next option, which is discussed below, is the core bag system that I'm sure you folks have talked about. It required the town getting some funded to do the design and the permitting of that, and we are moving forward with that. And then the other thing was the 3 rounds that were implemented over the past 2 winters, and you can see there that was between 3 to 5,500 cubic yards per event. So I think total, Nina, what were you, about 15,000 cubic yards after the 3? Something like that. Which, it sounds like a lot, but on the scheme of things, 15,000 cubic yards is not a lot of volume for beach nourishment. And we'll talk a little bit more about a long-term option of considering maybe a more large-scale type of nourishment effort. So that brought us to the sand-filled core bags, and this was, again, in discussions with our regulatory folks. Well, what can we get out there? We don't want to sit here and spin our wheels, and we need to do something. We need to get something in the queue here to start dealing with the situation out there on a more short-term basis. And what was discussed are these sand-filled core bags. I've got some slides. We'll talk a little bit more in detail. But again, these aren't the answer. These are a temporary, short-term solution. They're meant to biodegrade. They're not going to last forever. They're basically made up of corals, coconut fibers, and jute, so it's all natural, biodegradable by design. And what's allowed the agencies, correct me if I'm wrong, to more or less allow this under the regulations is because it's biodegradable. It's covered with sand, so that the sediment source is still there, and then over time the bags degrade, and inside the bag is more sand. So you never truly lose that sand source. And that has been permitted, it has been used successfully, but again, I remind everybody, it's not the answer. There's a lot of maintenance that potentially is required for these systems after storm events. The loss of the sand cover, which we've seen, the sand nourishment itself. In 2 years, the amount of money you've invested in that, we need to maintain a sand cover. We plant these things with beach grass to try to get the root systems to help stabilize the bags themselves. It's important to maintain the cover because once the sunlight gets on those bags, they start biodegrading. So there's a maintenance component to this, and it's something that has to be maintained. Otherwise, you're not going to get the longevity, which is probably about 5 years.
And that core bag system would cost the town anywhere from about $400,000 to $500,000 and would be effective for about 5 years. Coleman says if approved, the core bag system would give the town more time to find a longer-term solution. A state commission tasked with investigating the impact of erosion and making recommendations to deal with damage to beaches will make its way to Hyannis later this month. The Coastal Erosion Commission is hosting a public hearing in the Town Hall hearing room March 25th from 5 to 7. Well, be sure to tune in to our hour-long news program Barnstable This Morning, weekdays at 7 a.m. On tomorrow's show, we will get the latest real estate numbers from Register of Deeds Jack Mead. We'll chat with Director of Senior Services Madeline Noonan. Plus, we'll have all the news and information you need. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Mantle.